What's trending here? Looks like we could get a little shakeup in the front offices of the Chicago Bulls. They're sitting there in the 10th slot. What, about 5 games out of the Orlando Magic in that A slot. Bulls president Michael Reinsdorf has been gathering background of potential candidates to take over the franchise's basketball operation, sources are telling ESPN. The John Paxson Gar Foreman front office leadership structure, which has been running the team since 2009.
Dear God.
Unlikely to continue in its current form beyond this season. So looking to make some changes for Chicago. Certainly that city used to some championships. Would love to get back to something even close to that. In golf, Tiger Woods, 76 he shot during the Genesis Invitational. Says he felt stiff at Riviera there. Said he just couldn't loosen up. Remember, he decided to skip the WGC Mexico Championships. He shot that 76, even at a 4-putt. Afterward, he seemed a bit relieved, saying he didn't feel he would be prepared properly for the WGC Championship event next week, where he tied for 10th a year ago. He said the idea is for him to peak around Augusta. Not shocking, not surprising. Remember last year, he won the Masters, and man, was that fantastic. He said in reference to a question about peaking for the majors, and specifically the Masters, he said, I just felt like I wasn't going to be ready for next week. A little rundown and playing at altitude in Mexico City isn't going to help that, so I'm taking the week off. It was week 2 in the XFL. We're going to jump into this a little bit. The Guardians, the New York Guardians, Jason Fitz's team, took on the DC Defenders. It was Matt McGloin against Cardale Jones. Matt McGloin and their team, they stunk. They got shut out in this game, and it was so bad that at halftime, Matt McGloin was interviewed by our own Diana Rossini and said this.
Matt, what does this team need to do on offense to get something going here?
We need to change the whole entire game plan at halftime.
Okay, what do you need to change about the game plan? What are you frustrated about?
There's just a lot going on right out now. It's embarrassing for us here as an offense, so a lot of things we want to fix and correct.
There's access right there. Change the entire game plan. Head coach Kevin Gilbride said, I need to talk to him and figure out what the problem is because he needs to play better. By the way, the next possession that New York had, McGloin threw a pick 6. Yeah. Didn't end well, and that's what's trending, and not trending very well right now for the your New York Guardians.
Yeah, Jason put the Jason Fitz Drake curse on him.
Holy smokes.
You know, he was benched later in the game. His quote when he was benched, because they interviewed him right on the sideline, at no point in time did I think we were comfortable at there. At no point in time did I think we were in a position to try to be successful. Woo! But, you know, ride or die. Like, I still got my Guardians hoodie on.
I think they're ticked you have the Guardians hoodie on.
Exactly.
I think it's probably my fault. Like, I sussed it down, I broke it down, and I figured it out. I spent money on this hoodie, right? Once I invest in a team to that level, like once I spend cash on them, things go downhill. Like, maybe I need to just stop spending money on the Raiders.
They need to interview you and ask you why you continue to hurt things that you claim to love.
Why? But it does, gentlemen, bring me to, and everybody knows, like, look, week 1 from the XFL got rave reviews across the board. It got rave reviews from us, from most of the media, and especially from me. I am willing to look at it and say week 2, not just for the Guardians, but across the board, gave me a little bit more pause, a little bit more hesitation, because it felt like, and we should have expected this, after a week of getting some actual tape on teams, defenses were way ahead of offenses. And so suddenly it looked like quarterbacks just were – they were bad. I mean, there's not a great way to put it. Like, quarterbacks just weren't capable of getting it done when everybody had a week to prep for it.
Yeah, I think that's you know, we are looking at that position, and we're seeing a lot more interceptions than we are touchdowns. The scores are very low. So I do think the excitement of week 1 lived up to it all. We'll see about attendance. There are some reports we hear the attendance will be a little higher, and others say it'll be a little lower. We know it was like 2,000 lower in Washington. Seattle is leading the way. They're showing out there, doing a great job showing out in Seattle. So we'll get numbers on that. It'll be interesting with the ratings because of what you were competing with. Now, they didn't have on Sunday the Daytona to compete with because that kept going in a rain delay. So we'll see if that helped them at all. But the quarterback play was shoddy. No doubt about it. It seems right now the two teams are Houston and D.C. P.J. Walker, who has 7 touchdowns in his first 2 games, pretty impressive. And then Cardale Jones playing well. But watch out for my team as I'm sporting the Dallas Renegades jersey. Landry Jones finally healthy now. They finally scored a touchdown after going 6 or 7 quarters of the Bob Stoops-led team without having a touchdown. A crazy fourth quarter where Dallas gets the win over Los Angeles 25-18, where we saw our first 3-point extra point in that one as well. But I wonder where that Dallas team will go now that Landry Jones is healthy and playing.
And I say Landry Jones still didn't look fully healthy, to be honest. It took a while for anyone to get anything going. But we just got the numbers up here. Week 1 attendance was just over 69,000. Week 2 attendance, 76,280. Okay. Seattle, major boost. They had their home opener there, as you said. So they showed out in that one. But the only thing I would push back onto the idea that obviously, and listen, quarterback play overall is going to need some work. You need your stars to play well. Like Cardale Jones, we said, is probably the biggest name in this.
Right.
Continues to play that well in that.
Yeah.
PJ Walker that you just mentioned, I think has been the best version of what quarterback play looks like in the XFL going forward. Jordan Thomas got that kind of upside where you've got a dual threat guy that can make exciting plays happen, because I think having standstill guys back there is going to prove to be troublesome for them going forward. But when you put all those guys there and then Landry topping 3 bills with a lot of late offense in that game, I saw enough to say, okay, there are guys that are going to be able to make this go. And between the fan buy-in and what I thought was really cool was you saw Todd Gurley and Melvin Gordon on the sideline for the game in LA right there, supporting some of the guys that had been teammates of theirs in training camp. They were getting interviewed down on the sideline. They were up to date on this. They were paying attention to it. We saw kind of all across. This was the second weekend, and so we saw NFL guys in their respective cities going out and lending support to this, which I think gives some legitimacy to this as we continue to try and build the product.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. I think last week I said the thing that the XFL really couldn't afford was one team that's just god-awful, because there's only 8, and we're going to see them every weekend. I looked at this week and thought, man, at some point, and I know we're very early, but to your point of Cardale Jones and PJ Walker, we need to see some of these guys string together consecutive games so we get buy-in on, like, okay, these are our stars. Because I guess it really hit me watching this week and seeing some of the commentary and hearing some people talk about how it takes a little time to get rhythm and get familiarity with the playbook. Well, that's going to be an issue every single year for the XFL, right? Because if Cardale Jones and PJ Walker play really well, the presumption is at the end of the year, they're going to go try and make an NFL roster.
Right.
So this changeover means that there's almost an immediate need to figure out who the stars are and have those stars play like stars. That's asking a lot, because the league as a whole can't afford to have a McGloin play really well one week and then McGloin play really poorly week 2. Like, this up and down of it sort of makes everybody sit back and say, okay, who am I buying into and why? Like, we like stories. We like sort of stars that we can look at and pinpoint. That's what we've got to figure out.
Well, we like having fun. We don't like having recycled pocket passers is maybe what we're finding out about in this.
That's
like,
well said.
And I saw like Mina Kimes, who is our foremost XFL fan here at the Worldwide Leader, and others commenting on what might need to happen offense, because there's no secret, like what we talked about. You want to see points in offense. Like, that's what's going to actually move the needle in all this thing. And so how do you do that? I mean, what's infiltrating the NFL right now? Mobile quarterbacks who you can use in different ways right now. And so I think when we see this going forward, and we hopefully see guys get signed back into the NFL, that next time around we look at this and say, all right, as we look, because they did allocating quarterbacks first in this entire league. Can we find quarterbacks that maybe skew more towards guys that we can use some of that mobility, make some of the exciting plays?
And how much comes into the play of that? I thought I brought up as well. Was it Jeff Schwartz who brought up?
I think it might have been Jeff,
The coaches. The coaches are kind of coaches who have been around a long time, kind of the old style of football, that pocket passer, and we're not seeing a lot of the today game player. Now, those really good mobile quarterbacks are in the NFL, but it doesn't mean there aren't more that could infiltrate the XFL. Listen, and I will always push it, because the football has so few opportunities for players who are just on the outside looking in, or had a cup of coffee there and are looking to get back in, that I'm always going to push a league to make it. It's never going to be great football. What you're hoping for is pretty good football, right? You want something better than college, but you know it's always going to be less than the NFL. But if you're going to skew one way, be more less than the NFL than better than college. We'll see if it gets there. I have no idea if it's going to get there or not. I'm hoping it does. Attendance went up. Obviously, we have to see what the ratings are. They have great deals signed with ESPN, with ABC, and with Fox, so you know exactly where to find them. So the football eventually is going to dictate this.
I think the easiest way to do. I mean, this is why you've gotten, I think, a push towards, and thankfully, mobile quarterbacks who created, because originally it was a Band-Aid. It was, all right, if we are a high school team that wants to run the spread, if we are a college team that's outside of the Power 5 who can't recruit bodies along the lines of scrimmage to win with, and that's another thing we talk about with these leagues all the time is how is offensive line play going to be to protect these quarterbacks? Right. You overcome that with having a great athlete playing the quarterback position, with a guy who on his own can make enough people miss and then make plays downfield. And we saw that as the original idea turn into, now these guys are accomplished passers to go along with that. You get the best of both worlds. But I think having that position ironed out with somebody who can buy time for themselves because they won't always have it is the key to making these things work. That's the trickle-up effect we have seen from spread offenses in high school all the way to now, like the eventuality of Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson dominating in the NFL. Like, that was a trickle-up deal, not the other way around.
To that end, I think that's where success for somebody like P.J. Walker, who so far seems to be the star of the unexpected
And for those that
star.
don't know, he had like a practice squad such with the Colts for a little bit. So he had seen, around and NFL game plans and such like that, so trying to get back there.
Yeah, well, and Andrew, the story is Andrew went to his dad, Oliver, and was like, hey, this kid can play. He needs to get a shot. And then now he's used that shot, and he is sort of what Mike's talking about. He's able to do it in fun-to-watch ways. That's also a big win for the XFL because I feel like there's got to be a group of mobile fringe NFL-type guys that have never really gotten their shot because the NFL took too long to catch up with that stuff, that are sitting out there that can turn around and play. That's a win for the XFL if an unknown can sort of rise and become their star in the season. Next year they can walk into it, presuming there's a next year, and say, who's the next P.J. Walker, right? Like, that's the sales pitch.
That is a sales pitch. And to your other side of it, oh, no, I hope this doesn't happen. It may happen this week because the worst team right now, especially there are a couple winless teams, the LA Wildcats and the Tampa Bay Vipers. And the Vipers have scored 3 points
they've been rough.
and 9 points. They have not played well. And this week, they're playing the Houston Roughnecks, there have been two, as far as the betting lines, 2 times the over has been hit. Houston is the game that has hit it both times.
Gonna hit it by their damn selves.
Yeah, so they just had the closest game with St. Louis, the Battlehawks, 28-24. They play the Vipers at 2 o'clock on ABC in Week 3. That's one of those, man, you cross your fingers, the Vipers step up a little more because we did see an ugly game in 27-0, quite honestly, with the Defenders and Guardians. But you're right, Jason. You don't want to see too much of that.
Well, and to that point, L.A. also 0-2 has not necessarily gone the way they want in L.A., and they play D.C. next. Right. And D.C. looks to be one of the cream of the crop
Looks to be
teams.
D.C. and Houston right now, unless Landy Jones gets healthier and starts to bring that team along.
Give the Battlehawks credit. We circle all the way back to that note of attendance that we talked about. I saw this per the Mighty Mox, K-Mox. Someone went on there and said the Battlehawks supposedly only have suites remaining for their home opener. 27,500 seats are gone. They're not going to open the upper level. But St. Louis, who obviously felt very strongly about losing the Rams to Los Angeles, showing out for the team that's currently there. So I have to give credit to that fan base.
Well, and St. Louis loses, obviously, what turned out to be sort of the game of the weekend. So we want this to work. Everybody wants it to work, and hopefully they can get some of this ironed out. They're just going to have to find better quarterback play. I mean, it's that simple. Within the system that they run, they're going to have to find better play for everybody to keep buying in. Speaking of quarterbacks, another weekend, another set of rumors about Tom Brady. So we'll break down where Tom Brady needs to go. We'll do it after this SportsCenter update.
The intrigue. Davis has the ball. Spins it in his hands. Free throw up. It's good. It's over. Team LeBron has won the 69th NBA All-Star Game. 157-155 over Team Giannis.
On a free throw. God, that's tough. But you heard it on ESPN Radio. Mark Kessinger, John Barry on the call. And the All-Star Game did not disappoint overall last night. Team LeBron rallied from down 11 in the fourth to beat Team Giannis 157-155. Anthony Davis hits the walk-off free throw to seal the deal. It was the first NBA All-Star Game decided by 2 or fewer points in 10 years. Kawhi Leonard finishes with 30 points, 7 boards, and 4 assists to win the first ever renamed Kobe Bryant MVP award. He joined Michael Jordan now as the only players to win All-Star Game MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and Finals MVP. Staying in the NBA, according to our own Woj and Brian Windhorst, Cleveland and coach John Beilein have discussed the possibility of him stepping down as coach before the end of the NBA All-Star break. Beilein's expected to reach a decision in the next 24 to 48 hours, sources tell ESPN. He's expected to speak with Cavs GM Kobe Altman about his future very soon, as soon as today, sources say. Beilein signed a 5-year contract with Cleveland after leaving the University of Michigan before the season. And it's February, but we have some college football news. Clemson may have fallen short in the title, but for the second straight year, the Tigers will enter the season as the team on top, according to ESPN's Football Power Index. Clemson returned 6 starters on each side of the ball, including all 4 defensive linemen. That sounds familiar. And one of the favorites to win the Heisman in quarterback Trevor Lawrence. Just behind Clemson, the team that the Tigers beat in the Fiesta Bowl, Ohio State.
Sports Center brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Straight Talk Wireless has the full court cell phone coverage you need. Get the unlimited plan with 25 gigs of high-speed data, then 2G, for just $45 a month, saving you up to half the cost of the big carriers. Everything for less. Savings may vary. Check out terms and conditions at straighttalk.com.
This could be the best when it comes to name recognition. Free agent quarterback class we have ever seen.
Give Tom Brady those weapons. Who's going where and when?
Dak Prescott is 26 and can move.
Continuing coverage right here.
Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the show. Penzo Performance Line, Jason Fitz in for Trey with Mike Golic and Mike Golic Jr. And another weekend, another set of reports. Larry Fitzgerald Sr. is a longtime member of the media in Minnesota, father of Larry Fitzgerald, the wide receiver we all know. He went to Twitter over the weekend and offered up the reports that he's told Las Vegas is preparing to offer Tom Brady $60 million over 2 years to be the Raiders quarterback. So to get thoughts on that and all things quarterbacks, we're now joined by ESPN NFL analyst Dan Orlovsky joining us on the show. Penzo Performance Line. Dan, thanks for the time. So let's above and beyond where Brady's going to go. When a team signs Brady, if they sign him for the next 2 years, what are they getting at quarterback?
A guy that can go win them the Super Bowl. I mean, Tom Brady is still playing at that level where he's good enough to go take a team that's got a really good offensive line. That's the number one thing he needs, is a really good offensive line to keep him upright, and then some people to throw the football to. If the team has that, Tom Brady can take them to the Super Bowl. I think that if you're looking at teams, I look at the situation and just keep it as honest as I can. Tom Brady came out during the Super Bowl and said, I will not be wearing a blazer to next year's Super Bowl. So we can kind of discuss or argue a lot of the things or reasons why Tom Brady might sign somewhere. But the number one reason to me when he makes that comment is who can I go to the Super Bowl with? And that's why I look at a couple teams. Like if it's just a football decision, it's the Dallas Cowboys. Are the home run fit? It's the Indianapolis Colts are the next best fit. And then I would say it's the Raiders. And so I think that if a team honestly looks at their roster and goes, man, we are a really good quarterback play away from making a legit run at the Super Bowl, Tom Brady should be at the top of the list for them.
Dan, I just want to ask you, you just said Colts. Why Colts over Titans if you're looking at an AFC South team that could win a Super Bowl?
Well, I mean, everyone continues to tie the Titans, and if they go, well, Tom Brady, if he goes to Tennessee, he's going to have Derrick Henry. No, he won't. It's very unlikely that Derrick Henry is going to be able to re-sign with the Titans if Tom Brady goes there. They don't have enough money, and they re-sign Conklin, their offensive tackle. So, I don't see the running game being the same. If I look at Indianapolis and go Indy's defense versus Tennessee's defense, pretty comparable. Both defenses are good. The Colts have a better offensive line than the Titans. They probably have more weapons, especially a guy as special as T.Y. Hilton. And then the reality of the scheme fit is much better in Indy than it is in Tennessee. It's a scheme that's about ball distribution at the quarterback position and a ton of money to spend in free agency.
Talking to Dan Orlovsky with us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Let's not bury the lead there. You said Dallas is the first team out of your mouth for Tom Brady. And so given the choice of the two, if you have Dak Prescott for the long term in this, a younger quarterback who you could sign, versus Tom Brady for, let's say, 2 years, if we're going to keep hugging 45 as the age limit, which are you taking?
I'm taking Tom Brady, but there's an asterisk to this, okay? People need to understand where I'm coming from with this, because if the Cowboys are not going to pay Dak Prescott the big contract, the long-term contract, that means that they are going to franchise Dak Prescott. You've told me everything that I need to know about your viewpoints on Dak Prescott. The reality is this. The Cowboys made Troy Aikman the highest paid player in the history of the NFL. Then Emmitt Smith. then gave Tony Romo the most Cowboy money ever. Made Ezekiel Elliott the highest paid running back ever. They pay Tyron Smith the biggest offensive tackle money ever. Like, they pay the players that they want to without hesitation. If they're not going to do that with Dak Prescott, that means they don't want to. We've never had a quarterback in the history of the NFL play under the franchise tag and then sign a long-term deal with the same team that franchise tagged him. So I see the Cowboys, if you're going to franchise Dak, it's a one-year rental. That's the way I see it. And Dak is not going to come back and sign a long-term deal there, even if you want him to. So I'm looking at it as going, okay, what's better for this team? The one-year franchise tag with Dak Prescott, who has struggled to beat really good football teams in the past 2 years, or the one-year rental or one-year salary of a Tom Brady who has dominated really good football teams over the past 2 years. And I weigh both of those, and I go, Tom Brady's the best option if you're not going to give Dak the long-term deal.
Dan, we're staying in the AFC for a moment, the best team to reach the Super Bowl. What would you say about staying right where he is in New England?
I just don't see it. Tom Brady can't be their first free agent signing because they have to prove to Tom Brady that they are going to become a better football team, a more equipped football team, so they don't repeat last year. So, he can't be their first free agent signing. They have the toughest schedule in the NFL next season. This is a roster that was 3-3 last year against teams with winning records, and 2 of those wins were against the Bills, who I do believe are an up-and-coming football team, but they struggled against really good football teams last year. This is a team that McCourty's a free agent, Van Noy's a free agent, Jamie Collins is a free agent, so everyone raves about the defense. Those are 3 big pieces. They will probably lose Joe Thuney, one of their best offensive linemen, is an offensive guard. He's probably going to be gone in free agency. So everyone's pointing to the Patriots, and I'm going, wait, the Patriots, if you're going to go in again, I'm under the premise that this is a football decision. I understand the division is not dominant, but this is a team that still is a far ways away. They don't have a ton of cap. They've got a very difficult schedule. They need to add pieces, and they can't just go, hey, Tom, come back, and we promise you we're gonna get AJ Green. What happens if AJ Green gets franchise tagged? Oh, we'll go get Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry's gonna get way more money from someone else other than New England. Football-wise, I don't see it.
Doesn't Bill Belichick get any benefit of the doubt of saying building a team, even though they haven't been great players? We've seen him take teams without the great players to the Super Bowl. Why wouldn't he get that same benefit of the doubt?
And that's a fair question, and I think that Tom Brady needs to sit back and go, okay, am I willing to bet my future on the benefit of the doubt or the talent? And I can't answer that. And yes, you can sit there and say benefit of the doubt, but again, what does he tell Tom Brady? Hey, Tom, we're going to go get AJ Green. You don't have full control over that because he can get franchise tagged. Tom, we're going to get Hunter Henry. You can't afford Hunter Henry if you're going to pay Tom Brady the salary that we all think, probably $30 million or whatnot. You're going to lose Van Noy. You're going to lose Jamie. There are pieces here that, and again, this team was 3-3 against teams with winning records last year. They got whooped by the better teams. They play San Francisco next year. They play Baltimore next year. They play the Chiefs next year. They have the most difficult schedule in football next year as we sit here today.
You guys can follow him on Twitter at Dan Orlovsky7. As always, we appreciate the expertise, my friend. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Thanks. There is only one AFC team that I would even consider to say that would be. I still give Bill Belichick the benefit of the doubt. He's done it time and time again. They find a way.
The interesting part is they find a way because of Tom Brady in a lot of those instances, right? Because of how great he was in the past, you were able to put those guys.
The thought
around
of the Raiders. Sorry, Jason. No shot. No shot to me. He goes to the Raiders that they're any kind of threat, let alone getting to the playoffs, being in the playoffs. To me, the AFC, one of the teams I would agree with would be the Colts because they have a great offensive line. They have a really good running game, and their defense was better than people thought. And you're not sold on Jacoby Brissett. So if there was a team that I would say, okay, let's give this guy a couple of years with the talent we have. Other than that, I'm staying in New England, and I'm saying Bill has done good enough for me to bring people together. They've had free agents in the past, whether they re-signed them or not. finding a way to get it done. But the Raiders, I'm sorry, I don't see that, and I definitely don't see Dallas. Dak's going to be the Cowboys quarterback.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Raiders. Even if he goes there, they're the second best team in the West, and he's the second best quarterback there. That's best case scenario. Coming up, there are some serious accusations being made in the Mason Rudolph, Myles Garrett saga. We'll discuss the legal ramifications of everything, and we'll do it after this.
All right, athletes are still athletes when they're off the field. That's why they still need to make good choices, like staying hydrated with Bolt 24, with antioxidant vitamins A and C, electrolytes from watermelon and sea salt, and no artificial sweeteners or flavors. Bolt 24 is all-day hydration for all-day athletes. Back after this, Golic and Wingo.